What will change my mind? I was asked this a long time ago. Well, when I first started joining the social media crowd, when I used to debate and argue with creationists, ideologues, religious people, etc., etc. And I used to ask, what will change your mind? After greater people than I have asked that question, I think it was Christopher Hitchens that first posed a question to a religious person, if I am not mistaken. What would it take to change his mind? Never got an answer, but Christopher Hitchens, I think it was Christopher Hitchens, I could be wrong. Someone correct me in later on. Like Christopher, if that was his quote or that was his premise, I can change my mind easily. All it takes is evidence and data. Today I have a new study that was released recently, and an article written on that study by a person called Efrat Livni. Now, a bit of a premise about her. She's not a scientist, but she's an enthusiast. And I'm not going to be too mean on her because obviously it's not in her field. She does her best. To a certain point, she presents enough of the data at the beginning, but then she goes a bit ideological in her article. But that's why I'm here, to address these inconsistencies, you can say. So I'll start sharing the screen as usual. Hello everyone, how are you today? As usual, I won't be watching the chat, so I'll be focusing in on the article. I think my sound is okay because here it is. The meter level is okay, so let's share. Now, this is from the magazine or something, I don't know, it's Quartz. It that how to come up with better ideas according to scientists who develop a new theory of human evolution. Nice title. Let's work with it. Has some diagrams and pictures of more or less where we evolved. And when I say we, I'm talking about this article's about Homo sapiens sapiens, us, modern humans or humans, us. Now, so group of scientists have a new theory about how humanity came to be, and the story of how their theory came together is a lesson for the rest of us. Nice, okay. It shows how breaking out of professional and ideological silos can lead to groundbreaking ideas. Absolutely, there's nothing to criticize here. That's perfectly. We should never be in any ideological bubbles or professional bubbles. Now, for years, the consensus has been that Homo sapiens emerged from one spot and one population in East Africa some 300,000 years ago. This is a little bit incorrect. East Africa 200,000 years ago was the consensus until quite recently. But according to a new paper in the journal Trends in Ecology and Evolution, which I have linked in the description for your reading pleasure, it's from Cell, so it's from biology. Or you can click on here, gets you that. But there's a full-length article if you click on full in the page when you open it, if you want to open it. And it says we didn't come from one place or population on the continent. That is correct. We didn't. Instead, the lineage of Homo sapiens is probably originated in Africa. Very, 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 very probable. At least 500,000 years ago. Yes, I agree totally. This is factual in my optics. We know that at around 500,000 years ago, on Earth, there were a species called antecessor, H. antecessor. He lived in Africa and in Eurasia. Now, in Eurasia, we know that antecessor, most highly probable, gave rise to Neanderthals, who at about the same time, or a little bit later, more or less, there was a split due to geographical positioning, and in Asia, more Eastern Asia, going to the east, not where Chinese, but you can say in the middle or even there, a species developed that was very, very similar to Neanderthals, but was distinct, and that was Denisovans. And then since then, we have known that they were two, we could say, variants of Denisovans, or races of Denisovans, to be more precisely, because they were distinct enough to be visible in the genetic record. While Neanderthals, through all their genetic history, they remained very homogeneous. Denisovans seem to have split to the northern and southern populations. They were distinct enough that we can identify them in the genetic. Now, that being said, in Africa, antecessor was also there, and quite possibly around this date, 500,000 years ago, we started to emerge. H. sapiens. H. sapiens. Now, here it says it evolved from interlinked groups across the entire swathe of Africa towards contemporary human morphology over tens of thousands of years. I'd say over hundreds of thousands of years, because as you guys know, I've talked about it enough. Our morphology and genetics seems to have coalesced into what we are now in every corner of this planet around the 70-ish thousand year mark. The genetic difference between Eurasians, and including the Americans, and Africans is just enough, due to the Eurasians, etc., mating with Neanderthals and Denisovans. That's the distinction. But everything else, the genetics it's similar. I mean, when I say similar, I'm understating the term. It's equal, the same. Granted, with the obvious regional adaptations, which are hereditary adaptations, that give rise to all humans on Earth. So that's where we are now. Now, yes, I would say that we have found, 2 years ago, I've talked about him, Jebel Irhoud in Morocco. That's in Western Africa, Northwestern Africa. She says Eastern Africa, Northwestern Africa, which is the 300,000 year mark. That has pushed up our earliest physical presence, physical evidence of our lineage, our species, sapiens that would later become sapiens, because we're not sapiens neanderthalensis, we are sapiens or sapiens denisovans. So yes, so this slow and expansive change has influenced by ecological genetic shifts, according to the authors. They say future work should acknowledge multi-regionalism and the complexities of our African origins. Oh no, I have a problem with multi-regionalism, because it says that that there were multiple evolutionary occurrences of our species, which gave rise to an exact copy of us in different parts of the world, of Earth, in Africa and in Asia. That to me is very, very problematic. I know what multi-regionalism is. I would adapt or adopt multi-regionalism to say that we, due to our interbreeding with native species of the areas we moved into them, that gave rise to that type of multi-regionalistic view of us. But not what the multi-regionalism that she proposes here. And so, yeah, but yes, we evolved due to ecological, genetics, sexual differences, sexual preferences, a whole host of factors. Just not one. It's like she says, a variance of factors. So, the complex new view of human evolution emerged from a sophisticated approach to research. Well, no, this is where I sort of begin to note that she's not very well read in archaeology, human evolution, etc. Because we don't view how human evolution as a simplistic view or a simplistic approach. We archaeologists try to find the most we try to explain simplistically as possible, but our research is not simplistic. It's very, very complex, sophisticated. The scientists who proposed this theory have it's not a theory. See, it's a hypothesis. It's not a theory. Theory is when it's tested and found to be unfalsifiable. It has to be tested further to find out if it's untestifiable. So still a hypothesis. That's another thing. It's not a theory. It's a hypothesis. So have very different specialities, and come from institutions around the world. Okay, they include archaeologists, anthropologists, biologists, geneticists, geographers, environmental scientists, and zoologists. She's basically saying this is a new approach, but it's been done since the 70s. Because when I was studying for archaeology, that's what we tapped into, all these fields. Fine, but no, we even tap into the knowledge and expertise of forensic scientists, of computer scientists, of physicists, of statisticians, of chemists. We tap in. We collaborate with every known field of knowledge in order to construct the past as objectively and accurately as possible. So once assembled, the interdisciplinary research team took a more nuanced approach to human evolution than usual. Instead of focusing on individual fossils, we sort of tend to focus on individual fossils because they are so rare, and the more fossils we find, then we can broaden our knowledge base more. So then we can start the very beginnings of trying to generalize certain aspects, certain features, certain trends, certain data sets. The shape of skulls. Well, if you're trying to compare Neanderthal with a sapien or a Denisovan or an antecessor or an Australopithecine, you sort of tend to need to focus on the shape of skulls, or specific tools found in a single place to tell humans' origin story. This sentence here sort of confused me. Or specific tools found in a single place. So we need to focus on specific tools found in a single place, because they could be the beginning of a new culture. That's how we found the finding individual specific tools in single places. That's how we found Aldoan technology. That's how we found Schulian technology. So in the Schul, the first place we found it. Aldoan, the first place we found it. Masturian technology in the Mastur, that's where we found the first specific tools found in a single place. Orignation in, I can't remember the name, it's something Orignation or something. Gravatian, those places, those cultures, tool cultures get their names because they were found initially in a single place of these specific tools for the first time. So it's normal, it's natural. Again, she does not really grasp how things work. Yeah, the scientists pull data from disparate studies, which we have always done, archaeologists, I mean. But at least she recognizes that archaeologists are, at least are scientists. Well, we come from humanities, but we are scientists because we employ the scientific method. And specialities that come up with a cohesive theory of human humanities emergence that accounts for ecological changes, migration patterns, as well as bones and artifacts. But also bones and artifacts, this is not enough. Ecological changes are one, migration changes are other. Factors such as disasters could shift genetics to a certain degree. That is what is believed. I think I've debunked that, or at least there's nuances to it, that why we are so genetically homogenous, especially the Eurasian, the non-African humans on Earth, is because there was somewhere a bottleneck, a genetic bottleneck that made us more very, very homogenous genetically. I think I've talked about it before, but it's in one of my videos. So there's also culture. She mentions bones and artifacts, but we are a cultural animal. Primates are cultural animals. Culture, as I've said, is everything that is not biological that you transmit to your offspring. Everything that is not biological, that is not the XY chromosomes, and or involved or influenced or that involves our genetics. It's culture. Culture influences genetics, and genetics influences culture. They are intermingled, and we are a cultural animals, as are the cetaceans, and as are some birds, and there are more than. It's not limited to us. So that be emphasized. So in other words, to come to this new view of evolution, they had to step outside the boundaries of their specific fields and collaborate. We have always done this. This is new to her. This is the first time she probably picked up a piece of archaeological research and said, "Oh, look, archaeologists or archaeologists and biologists are working with scientists." Yes, we've always done that. So what did they find, and how? Here's what they did to work together, and how you can do the same. Now, this is beginning to be a bit of. You guys know what I'm talking about. It's infecting the universities of the West. I won't spoil this my program by saying it, but it's ideologies. Now her ideologies are starting to try to think. Collaboration. We've always collaborated without any ideologies. Science does not have an ideology. The ideology that it has is objectivity. That's it. So, and here we go. Recognizing your blind spots. We do. That's why we use the scientific method, which mitigates as much as possible human subjectivity to become as objective as possible. Preventing bias was a key point. Lead researcher Eleanor Sherry from the Department of Archaeology of the Oxford University tells courts. Bias, like this article, it's pointing from a point of view of bias that doesn't know much what ignorant bias. Science eliminates bias. Eliminates bias as humanly possible, as it's impossible to become completely objectivity. You just have to remove the human from the equation for that to happen. But with the scientific method, you mitigate it to a smallest amount possible. That it once you can falsify the data, then you know that you are as objective as possible. That's what the scientific method basically is. So we felt strongly that moving forward had to involve breaking down barriers between disciplines, or should she this I interpret as breaking down barriers between ideologies, which don't happen, because beginning a respectful conversation about how circular bias can easily be constructed by cherry-picking across different sources of data to match a narrative emanating from one field. No, that's not how it works. We do not cherry-pick. Only an absolute, only someone who's fraudulent, who wants to commit an act of fraud in scientific fraud, that's done. Piltdown Man was that. That you have this. We don't. The scientists do not cherry pick data. They get data. They do not interpret it. They obtain it. Then they analyze it to see patterns. We try not to interpret it as humanly possible, and that's problematic for knowledge as a whole. Problematic. No. Sherry's group was aware of the ways that that any single scientific narrative could become dogma in a given field. So if enough scientists conclude that the law of thermodynamics, the fifth law of thermodynamics is as such, is that dogma? Is that scientific narrative? A single scientific narrative? No. That's what we're trying to achieve. Laws. That's the ultimate of knowledge. A scientific law. The fifth law of thermodynamics. Gravity. It's called a theory, but it's as damn well close to a law as possible. We just can't measure it directly yet. We can only measure it indirectly. But man, that's fact. So we all want to confront the fact that last year's inference can become this year's orthodoxy. And that is, why is that a bad thing? And that we didn't necessarily agree about everything else. That's okay. That's human. That is human. That is being us. We are not perfect. No one's perfect. Like I said at the beginning, what can get me to change my mind? Facts. Last 3 years ago, or 3 or 4 years, or so, not so long ago, because I forget the actual date, because it's been a long time study. It was a fact that the oldest example of our species was 200,000 years ago, found in in Kenya, I think it is, in the Olduvai region or Tanzania, that area, 200,000 years. The Rift Valley, that's a more general area, because sometimes geography, I apologize for that, because I know my geography, but sometimes I get a little bit muddled. But a couple of years ago, I knew it was a fact. It was dogma, as she said, that the oldest example of that we evolved in East Africa because the oldest example of our species was 200,000 years ago there. Now, jump to the future, not that long ago, Jebel-i-Rudak appeared. It's still being studied, but the conclusions are close enough to say that Jebel-i-Rud is a member of H. sapiens, our species. He is very archaic, judging from his age 300,000 years ago, and judging from this, not this article, but the study of 500,000 years ago. 200,000 years is a lot of time to get to at least that. Now, adding another 200,000 years to get to around the 70,000 mark, when we sort of clump it into our current manifestations of our species, then that's correct. That's normal. So I've changed my mind from the 200,000 to 300,000 years ago. I've starting to change my mind that we left Africa earlier. Well, our general species, humans, H. erectus, left Africa earlier than we had known. We know from Tbilisi in Georgia, examples of erectus, 2.1 million years old. But in China, they found couple of examples, which is 2.2 million years old. That's significant. It pushes back when the hominins left Africa by at least 100,000 to 200,000 years. And that's how you change your mind in science. That's not even changing a mind, because science is not a contest or a gotcha. Oh, look, this is older than that. See, you're wrong. No, just proves, look, we have more knowledge now because it's 200 or 100 years older than that object. That the original one still is valid as anything. The new one just says it's an exciting. That's why I get excited when I find new discoveries, because it's just adding to our knowledge. It's not discrediting anything in the past, just adding to our knowledge. And it continues. So basically, the team needed to include everything, including common assumptions in their fields for the debate. They were able to resolve conflicting theories and develop a cohesive view of the various findings. So the researchers met for 3 days and hashed out ideas head to head. They didn't make any presentations as they would in a traditional scientific conference. Instead, they analyzed each other's work and ideas, identifying both problems and accomplishments. Okay, so they spent 3 days. What's that word? Like a think tank, brainstorming. They analyzed all the data that was available, and they came to some conclusions, which is perfectly right. That's how you do it. So I think a particularly heartening feature of our group was that we started off from quite different positions. That's nothing bad, but managed to produce a coherent view that accounted for everyone's position. Okay, that's called cooperation. It felt like perilous approach was at first. No, that's not how it feels. But the ultimately incredibly rewarding. Of course it is, because you get knowledge. Knowledge is rewarding. The scientific ideal really prevailed. Yes, you apply the scientific method. That's what it happens. There was a lot of camaraderie. Human bonding is always fine. And goodwill, again, human bonding and human cooperation is always good, which is fantastic, despite the occasional disagreement. Some of us may have had. Ooh, I don't like this thing. Why should that be bad? It should be a good thing. Not everyone thinks the same. See what I mean, where I'm coming at by the ideological lens that this article is coming from? Just had a sip of beer. Sorry about that. So disagreements is how things go forward. No robotic, no same mindset. It's basically not what the ideals are. So to integrate the work of so many different scientists and put them together, see, that's sort of contradicting what she says. There's so much different work. You have to have contradictions. Put together in different findings. Exactly, again, emphasizing differences. You have to have disagreements. The team had to develop a common language. Fine. What a physicist vocabulary, or how his vocabulary is different from a geologist's vocabulary, even though they could have some common parlance in the middle. But okay. And the outcome of a particular model, they usually involved careful breaking down jargon and understanding at least the principles of different methods of analysis. That could lead to some conflict, some disagreements. Analysis, what the data says, exactly what the data contains, not what it says. The data just presents data. It's neutral. And what inference? Now that's human thing. You try to the data. We can infer what the data says, but we have to look at the patterns. Yes, the patterns. That's correct. Okay, an outcome of a particular model used. That's testing models. That's fine. And what that model's assumptions and limitations are. Again, testing models. That's model testing. They were basically testing the model. They were what peer review does. And later on, other scientists, after peer review, because before anything becomes a theory, said this is a hypothesis they were working on. It has to be confirmed or debunked by multiple scientists who use the exact same methodologies. So since it's difficult for science to specialize in more than one field, researchers have to pull their knowledge and learn to talk across specialities, which they have in archaeology, archaeological field, and human evolution, etc., and even the evolution of life itself. It's always been done that. Otherwise, the conclusions may emerge about a finding are likely to be limited by individuals' background. I don't know. According to Sherry, that's her opinion. Obviously, it's valid. All opinions are valid. You can disagree with them or not, but sure. Understanding the findings tend to be influenced by the models and paradigms we have in our heads. We're humans, which tend to act as a filter on how we process new information. Again, we are human. We're not robots yet. So bringing people together, bringing together people who disagree isn't always easy. So, but it leads to a deeper understanding of seemingly conflicting conclusions. Yes, and this sort of contradicts what she wrote just before. This contradicts. Despite the occasional disagreement some of us may have had. And now it's saying that who disagree isn't always easy. It's a teamwork. You're not supposed to agree with everything. Like I said, I'm re-emphasizing. The researchers weave their different theories, different hypotheses. Damn it. Hypotheses, not theories, into a cohesive story that makes more sense and accounts for complexity, which is laudable, always laudable. We have to know. That makes more sense and accounts for the complexity. It's rarely the case that one person is wrong and the other one is right. I said that before, didn't I? Insights from different people can help to shed light. I said it in a different way, but by the way, that I said that it's not the upmanship. Paraphrasing again, where last year's discovery counter is Upman makes the 2 years ago discovery wrong. No, it's like I said, it's just adding on to knowledge. From different models can help to shed light on the answers we look for. Perhaps we can say that nothing is really entirely new in science, and it's all about incremental steps and changing perspectives. Yes, it is. That's basically correct. Nothing wrong there. That's what science is. It's incremental steps. But then she goes on. We will see what I mean. Remember this phrase, by the way, guys. So with this latest paper, scientists have done just that, shifting our view of our African origins and upending a single human birthplace story. Not really, no. We're still African origin. We've just widened Africa instead of East Africa. Now it's Africa. And we were mobile. All hominins were mobile. All other species are mobile within that continent. Not today, they are not because of us, but they used to be. And they weren't limited to Africa, because we have lions in Eurasia, last glacial maximum. We have hyenas. We have elephants, which evolved into mammoths and mastodons. We have rhinoceros, woolly rhinoceros. We have hyena, etc. I just said hyenas. And so yes, the mobility of animals in the past was enormous within the Eurasian landmass. And then horses, which evolved in the Americas, came over to Europe, then became extinct in the Americas, and they thrived here in the Americas. Camelids, they evolved in Eurasia, Africa, Eurasia. They migrated to Americas, and they evolved into the cameloids there, the llamas, alpacas, vinacus, etc., etc. So yes, it's important to remember that it's okay to be wrong as long as it is for the right reason. Yeah, so of course it is. No, but it's okay to be wrong, and then you study some more, and then you say you recognize that you are wrong. Yes, that's what I said. Yeah, of course it is. It's okay to be wrong. That's how you change your mind. That's how you learn. We are probably all wrong to a degree. Yes, Siri says. In other words, just like humans evolve over time in a complex fashion, so does our scientific understanding. Very simplistic. Yes, we do. We are evolving. 300 years ago, we couldn't fly across a continent. Now we can, because we incrementally learn stuff. So in due time, even more sophisticated stories will no doubt emerge, because we are finding more and more evidence, more and more fossils, more and more sites. We are pushing the limits, of course. We are expanding the limits. So we are beginning to generalize, the little beginnings of generalization. Once we can generalize, Neanderthals ate this. Humans left Africa and did this. Generally, not. There are exceptions as always, but generally. Until now, where we need a lot of more data. So the important thing is pushing the new frontiers, questions, and testing hypotheses. The first time she got it right, testing hypotheses. She's been saying theories. Now she writes the correct. No, this wasn't her. This was the Sherry, the archaeologist from Oxford University. So now that phrase up above, she says, and we all contribute to that. We all stand on the shoulders of giants, and all giants got some things wrong. This is very, it's very, to at least it's a little bit condescending, because we are humans. Of course we get things wrong, and giants are not perfect. The giants they're referring to is huge brilliant minds, brilliant scientists. There's so many too. Aristophanes, Aristotle, Einstein, etc. And they got things wrong. Yes, Einstein got theory, quantum theory was wrong. He didn't accept it, and we need it today. Just things, of course. We're only human. So I finished the article. Now I'm gonna engage a little bit to see how's everyone in the chat. So hello everyone, hello Davey, hello John W. News mates, hello Beach, Beach Price, I said hello before. Anyone else? Nope, just awesome people, and a few that 6 views. That's okay, that's fine, I'm fine. So how is everyone? Just to add Nisha, I'll give about 5 minutes or so. Malafis, how are you? How are you, sweetie? Oh, this is something that I need to fix. There we go. Short story, you have moderator. And oh, you already have, yeah. So there we go. Now, anyway, I think I'll end it here because I don't really have anything new to say. Just it's beginning to be hot tonight, being cold and so on. But yeah. Anyway, people, I hope you enjoyed this stream. Next week or next time there will be another one. Thank you, Malafis. Thank you for the kind words. Yeah. I'm drinking a conventual Belgian conventual beer, which is very nice. It's called Corsendonk. It comes from Belgium, I think. Corsendonk Agnus. It's nice. It's nice. Hoppy. Anyway, people, thank you for attending, and see you next time.